The waltz? You said the waltz?
Yeah, the waltz. You don't know how to waltz?
No, Dylan, I don't know how to waltz. I can do the Cupid Shuffle, though.
Oh, shit.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Formula America podcast. We're your hosts, Kurt and Dylan, and we got to talk about what, in my opinion, is probably one of the most exciting race weekends as a whole in recent memory.
For sure.
Definitely for this year, for sure.
It was awesome. The whole weekend was insanity.
It was immediately from at the beginning of FP1. I turn on the TV and I just see a ton of like garbage or dump trucks and like regular passenger vehicles. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I see they're trying to dry the track all the way through to the final lap of the race. It was incredible, man.
And it was fun because it's just constantly changing situations. Like the strategy guys, you know, that's who Red Bull put up on the podium at the end was their strategist, because it was just a weekend of strategy.
Yeah. I would not want to be in that position. Hell, we had a hard enough time just trying to come up with 4 predictions.
Shit, I don't think I got a single one right either.
But man, yeah, Canada. What I'm starting to realize is Canada delivers, man.
It usually
can't think
does.
Of a boring Canadian GP.
And the funny thing is I don't think the track's all that good. I don't think it's the best F1 track there is at all. But for some reason, it always delivers.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely does.
I think it's one of the only tracks that has an ironic name for a corner, the Wall of Champions. Like you hear it and it sounds like this awesome thing, but it just turns out to be a wall that a whole bunch of champions have tagged and taken themselves out of the race on. Like I can't think of another track that has an ironic named corner.
That's true. They also have the the Lance Stroll grandstand over there.
Yes, they do for that window.
All right, so I think before we get into the race, it's kind of important to talk about some things that happened leading up to the race. Namely, right before the race weekend, we got confirmation that Checo Perez had extended his contract for 2 more years to go through 2026, which, you know, you and I talked about how it was kind of surprising that they went with 2 years.
Not true, actually. It came out yesterday. I saw on a side, it like didn't get a whole lot of publicity, but I was scrolling and saw it. It is a 1-year extension with a 1-year bonus extension possible if certain performance clauses are hit. So it's for sure a 1, but he does have an optional second, but he has to perform for it. So I was like, that makes a whole lot more sense to me.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so we got Checo with his. Then right before the weekend, we got confirmation that Yuki had signed on for another year, so he's going to stay at VCARB through the end of 2025. And also we had Jacques Villeneuve popping off, talking about how Danny Ricciardo doesn't deserve to be in the sport, and
he went off.
He went hard on Danny Ricciardo, and so we had those 3 things popping up, which I wanted to preface with those because I'm pretty sure all 3 of those are going to come up, and I think had a little bit of play in the weekend. But the whole thing with Checo, right? First off, when we did the prediction pod, I was like, you know, Checo is probably now going to be able to go into this race weekend with a clear mind, a clear conscience, and just, you know, come back into form. Boy, nope, that did not happen. Oh my God. Q1, 2 race weekends in a row. He's out in Q1 now. That is not good.
They're getting out qualified by Alpine. So I sent it to you on Instagram, actually. Logan Sargent is 0 for 30 against Alex Albon. He's 6 for 24 over Sergio Perez.
That's not a stat that you want if you're Sergio Perez. 6
times out qualified by Logan Sargent.
Man, so I don't know, man. Checo, we saw it happen last year. He starts performing poorly, the pressure starts to turn on, and he just keeps going down. And I really thought this was going to be the turning point where he's like can rest a little bit now that he had a new contract. But not good for him.
I think his only saving grace was how bad Ferrari's weekend was. Ferrari going into this weekend was 24 points behind Red Bull and had every opportunity at this track to take over the constructors lead. And then they botched the weekend as a team worse than Checo did by himself, which was impressive.
That took a lot. It took a lot of effort to do the downward slide that Ferrari did. That was a complete nosedive this weekend.
I mean, P11, P12 quality on merit, like bad strategy in the race, engine issues for Leclerc, like the whole thing was, and then Carlos bips it into the grass and takes out Albon. Like it was a bad weekend.
So I was reading an article on the race, and they were saying that Ferrari is chalking up their poor qualifying performance to a misjudgment of tire pressures, and saying that, also stating that because now they used to be so bad with tire management that they kind of went too far, and now they made a car that's so easy on the tires that it's hard to get the temperatures into the window and keep it there. And with that C5 tire,
argument.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, our car's too good now. So, yeah. But with that C5, they couldn't really, turn them on with the misjudgment of tire temperature. But then we get to Sunday, and man, Charles Leclerc immediately as the race starts complaining about the power issue, and I haven't been able to find any confirmation on what was going on.
He said afterwards it was a sensor. He said it was really frustrating because if you remember, at one point he was like, I don't know his new engineer's name. It's not Javi anymore. He was talking to him. He's like, I'm so slow in the straights. How much am I losing? And they're like, yes, you are losing a lot of time. He's like, that's not what I asked. How much am I losing? And they're like, half a second on the straightaways. And he's like, okay. And then when he came in for one of his 7 pit stops to put the wrong tires on, they reset something on the steering wheel and fixed it. And so he said after he got out, it was a sensor issue.
Okay. Well, that was a very, very bad weekend from Charles Leclerc coming off his high in Monaco. And then,
right, lap 31, freaking right as the rain is imminent. Everyone's putting on fresh inners. Let's put Charles Leclerc on a hard tire. That makes, and they're like, don't worry, you're already in last place. But as soon as, it was a gamble. And it's one of those that's either going to make you look really dumb or really good. And this one made you look really dumb. It was bad.
Look, I'm not faulting him for it. I mean, at that point, you got to try to do something. If it goes your way, you're going to be all right. Kind of like the Haas's at the beginning of the race.
Oh man, we got to talk about that.
Oh, for sure. But it just didn't work out for him. And then across the paddock or across the garage, you had Carlos Sainz, who got into a scuffle in the first lap, ruined his front or messed up his front wing. And then was just couldn't do much after that.
No.
And then, whatever, I forget even what lap it was where he went off and collected up Alex Albon and ruined any chance of Williams having any sort of points for this weekend.
You could tell James Val's interview afterwards, he was so disappointed.
Oh, I would be too, man. Alex Albon had a decent weekend.
He did.
He was he made it to Q3, 2 races in a row now. And, he was in contention for points and then just kind of got caught up and, nowhere to go at that point. He tried to do the Cole Trickle move where he's just gun it through but it didn't work for him. Unfortunately, Carlos Sainz came back across the track.
Yeah, it was just a bad week. Speaking of coming back across the track, I'm jumping topics a little bit, but did you see that Red Bull got fined and Checo got a 3-place grid penalty for driving around with his rear wing almost falling off?
I did. And I mean, honestly, as you're watching him go around with his floppy rear wing, you see bits of carbon just dropping all over the place, which that's a huge issue. I mean, it's carbon fiber that can easily cut somebody's tire and cause some massive issues.
Even Crofty and Brundle were like, bro, is he going to make it? Like, they're like, if that wing falls off, that's instant safety car. That's a huge issue. They're like, is he going to make it? He ended up making it all the way around the track, but it was definitely like kind of a nail biter of, you better hope this holds on.
So it's just another case of, when it rains, it pours for Checo. I mean,
he does not.
I guess it doesn't
well under pressure.
A 3-place grid penalty doesn't really matter when you're going out in Q1. So we'll see what happens when we get to Spain. But yeah, it's not good for him. And then on the other side of his garage, you got Max Verstappen, who is just having one hell of a weekend, and it just shows again, like when things start to go bad, the true champions are able to turn it around.
My buddy texted me and he was like, I think this weekend has proved that the Red Bull is not the fastest car on the track, but Max Verstappen is just that damn good. And I was like, yes, I completely agree with that statement.
Yep. It seems so interesting is with Max, it seems like he'll come out and complain about something wrong with the car. And I believe him. Unlike back when Lewis would be like, "Oh, my tires are dead," and then start setting fastest laps. Like I actually believe Max is honest when he comes over the radio and says he's got a suspension issue or whatever the case may be, but he's able to adapt his driving style and still continue to outperform other people, which I think
he was talking about how he couldn't get on the curbs because the suspension was so stiff that if he hit the curb, he said it almost knocked him out. And so he had to avoid all the curbs, which doesn't sound like much, but that's, changing your driving line and whatnot. And you're still outpacing the other cars who are not being limited by that. It's God, dog, he's good.
Yeah. That as much as I wanted to see Lando win this race, it was, I can't really fault Max after seeing what he did to actually, outperform at the end. Because, man, Lando, at the beginning of the race, Lando was putting some time on him. He was, like
15 seconds clear at one point?
That, man. And you know what? I know it was still early on in the race, and I'm not sure if he would have been able to hold on to that. But I feel completely robbed, as I'm sure Lando Norris feels robbed right now, too.
Everyone was making fun because he just got called out by the safety car. He'd already passed the pit entrance, safety car deployed, everyone else dove in, fresh tires, cut down his lead, just called out by the safety car. And everyone was making jokes about, it's karma for Miami. You won in Miami thanks to the safety car, and now the safety car is coming back to get you. So, even JP was, or GP. Who's Max's engineer? GP was like, haha, karma for this. I thought that was kind of funny.
Man, so let's talk about Lando, though. Because when that happened, so he was leading, he was pulling away from Max and Oscar and everybody else. And then you got, Logan Latifi over here putting it into the wall. And essentially
a second time too. He saved himself the first time. He didn't save himself the second time.
If you go back, he went off track twice in the first lap alone. Yeah. And then on this one, he actually put it into the wall and ended his race. But when that happened, like you said, Lando, when they put out the safety car, Lando had just passed the pit entry. And so he couldn't come in. So then you had Max and you had Oscar and George all come into the pits. And then Lando came in, a couple laps later. He ended up doing a couple more laps before he actually came in. I don't know if that was the best move. Because after watching what Yuki did, Yuki took those tires for 40-some laps. I don't know.
If you watched the lap time, his lap time wasn't being cut down too terribly.
Lando?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
when he stayed out a few more laps, he maintained a decent lead.
So, hindsight's always 20/20, and it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. But man, imagine if he would have stayed out and just continued, because he would have been so far ahead. Well,
he would have. That would have been his race to win. I think he's going to win a few more this year. But talking about botched pit strategies, let's talk about Haas, who made the strategy call of the year, going on full wets, and both K-Mag and Hulk moved up 9 places apiece.
Yes.
Holy crap, that Haas was moving. And then they call K-Mag into the pits because he's losing 3 seconds a lap on everybody now. And they don't even have the tires out. It was a 20-second pit stop that put him back in 18th place. You might as well have started on inners at that point. Good God.
Man, they were looking at his times, and if he would have had a decent pit stop, he would have slotted in somewhere around P10, give or take a place or two. And I think it was an 8 seconds stopped in the pits. It's come on, man. Everything that you guys had this bold strategy, you're watching your guy go up through the field. All you got to do is help him out now with some tires. And then he comes in and that happens.
And it's not like he had a puncture. It's not like it was an unplanned pit stop. There was no excuse that pit crew, other than they just weren't told. Right?
Yeah. Somebody dropped the ball somewhere in there. It was probably the same person that was supposed to tell the designers about the regulation change in the DRS last race.
That guy needs to be fired.
You did it again, buddy. So, and it was awesome to see because, like you said, both K-Mag and Nico, K-Mag more so, but reading into what was going on with Nico, apparently he had some sort of issue with his aero, so his downforce wasn't optimal, I guess, which we got to see. I think he got stuck behind, was it Lewis Hamilton? When he kind of stopped making progress through. But man, seeing Kevin Magnussen fly through the field like that was crazy. He was passing people just for fun. Like it wasn't even hard for him.
And he's up in P5 challenging the top 4 now. And it's like, holy shit. And then just blows the pit stop.
What a shame there.
Let's switch over to the heroes and zeros. I think that we'll probably cover. I want to talk about Mercedes and a couple others, but I think we're gonna end up hitting those anyway in the heroes and zeros.
Let's do that. Let's see. You started last one, so I'll start this one with my zeros.
Go for it.
So
I think we're gonna have a lot of overlap.
I'm sure we will, and I'm gonna go ahead and say our first zero is Checo Perez. Just my God, get it together, man. That was
you're in the
good.
Red Bull. We've made the argument that it's not the fastest by a mile anymore, but that's, it's in the top 3, not battling Kick Sauber.
Oh my God. All right. Speaking of Kick Sauber, I've done it the last 3 weeks in a row. I'm going to do it again. Kick Sauber, Jesus, they have completely solidified their spot as the worst Formula One team right now. By far.
0 points on the board still.
0 points again. They can't do anything. Bottas and Zhou Guanyu can drive the race of their life, but that car, I think at the beginning of the season, their performance was kind of masked behind their poor pit stops, but now their pit stops are straightened out for the most part, and you see that car just has 0 pace in it. They can't do anything, and because of that, I'm sure that's why Carlos Sainz is dragging his feet and doesn't want to sign with them, because why would he? So we'll probably see Carlos in a Williams uniform, next year or whatever. Because they can't get their shit together. So Kick Sauber's my second one. My third one, I've got 2 here. I'm going to say one because I'm sure you'll probably get the other one. I'm going to go with Logan Sargent. I was going to go with Williams as a whole, but after looking into what Albon was doing, Albon had a decent enough weekend. It wasn't his fault what happened to him. But Logan Sargent, man, again, it's always Logan Sargent. And this time,
you gotta go, bro.
He ruined my boy's race, and I tried to get behind him. I tried to be a supporter of Logan, be like, you know what? He's an American driver. Give him a chance. I'm done. I'm over it. Let's get him out of here.
You got to go.
So
he's more of a menace than Lance Stroll at this point.
He is. He has fully embraced and embodied the spirit of Nicholas Latifi, and I think he's one up Nicholas Latifi. I would actually.
Latifi's still the GOAT. All right, don't take that away from him.
Oh man, I want to see just a grudge match between Nicholas Latifi and Logan Sargent.
They wouldn't make it through turn 1. Just be a ball of flame at the end of the straight.
It'd be like one of those huge pay-per-view fights where everybody pays all this money and then it's like a 10-second knockout or something.
Yeah, just done.
Right,
I have Perez on mine. Instead of Sauber, I had Williams as a whole. I agree with you. Albon's kind of an asterisk there, but he was wrong place, wrong time with signs, and just what a shitty weekend for Williams. My third one, though, instead of Sauber, I'm going Ferrari.
Yep. Well deserved.
Well deserved. I think that there was also some background drama. We all saw the Ferrari PR person come over to Leclerc before his interview and start whispering in his ear. And then Leclerc said loud enough for the mic to pick it up. I'll say whatever I want, and walked away and just was like, we have no pace. The car was shit this weekend. I don't know how we came off of Monaco, which is one of the, highest downforce tracks, to do so well, to suck it up here in the dry so bad. Leclerc just kind of let the media have it. And it was like, ooh, man.
Damn.
That's,
you don't normally say that about the Scuderia, the family, if you will.
So it was a weekend to forget for Ferrari. 0 point. You're 24 points behind Red Bull coming into the weekend. Red Bull has now extended that lead to 49 points, all because of Max.
Yes.
But you had a great opportunity here and just completely shit the bed.
This was it. Checo was nowhere to be found. So if you were going to do anything to shorten that gap, it would have been Canada. So
yep.
I agree. All right. So from the negative to the positive, what do you got on your hero side?
I'm going to throw Mercedes up there, man. What a weekend. They brought some upgrades, namely the front wing, which they brought last weekend just to Russell, or last race just to Russell. Lewis had it this weekend as well. They found some more pace in that car. They're making developmental gains. Russell was on pole on merit, which just hurts my heart, and it warmed my heart to see him get his ass kicked. And I think my only ding against Mercedes this weekend was I do not know why they let Russell take it to Hamilton in that last 2 laps instead of saying go get Norris. Y'all just jockeyed for the same spots and gave up any hope of getting up into P2. I don't know why they didn't tell Russell to hold position, but
man,
otherwise, great weekend for Mercedes. It kind of gives that air of, ooh, could Mercedes be coming back? This could be interesting, but they did good this weekend.
That was definitely good. I one of my favorite parts was after Max Verstappen comes across in Q3 and sets the same exact time as George, but George is in P1.
Yeah.
The camera cuts to Toto Wolff, and he's just got that smug, like smirk look on his face.
He's got that Jeremy Clarkson smug look.
Yeah. But for Mercedes, like you said, man, they found some pace, and that battle between, for one, George Russell and Oscar Piastri was awesome. And when they go through that chicane, that was very reminiscent of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in Monza when Max wound up parking on top of Lewis's car.
Yep.
But you got to see that Oscar, he fights hard, but he fights fair. He left George Russell enough space to go through there. He could have done what Lewis did and actually, tried to push him off a little bit, but he gave him plenty of space. And George, to his credit, realized it wasn't going to work, so he shot off through the runoff. And then Lewis and George. Oh my God. I'm sure I had it, and I'm sure everybody in that team had that massive pucker factor and flashbacks to, what was that, Spain 2016 with Lewis and Nico Rosberg?
Yep.
Because they almost came together. That was so close.
It was. I don't know why they let them race like that at that point. Like,
I mean, what are they going to do? Well, I guess they could have told George, because I don't think Lewis would have listened at all at that point.
No.
But man, that was crazy. I wish it was Lewis on the podium, but
I do too.
Good on them. George had some highs, but George also made a lot of mistakes this weekend.
He did.
I think he admitted it, and so did Lewis. Lewis, after his interview, he said it was one of his worst weekends that he could remember, which I think is a little harsh. Maybe, the emotions were still a little high, but that was good.
Mercedes is a hero for me this weekend. Number 2, I've got Lando. I think Lando deserves some props. I think you can make an argument for Max, but I feel like Max's goes a little bit more. He has won 51 out of the past 76 races. It's insanity.
My God. That's wild.
Insanity. But Norris did awesome. He got 15 seconds clear in first place. He got called out by the safety car, which sucks. But man, it's awesome to see Lando up there. I loved watching him come out of the pit sideways, doing everything he could to get back in front of Max, but it was just too wet.
Man, it was such a wet area coming out of those pits, man.
Yes.
Nothing he could do about it.
And finally, and it hurts a little bit, but I'm gonna give it to Alpine.
Really?
Alpine.
Let's hear it. Why are you giving Alpine a hero?
Good on the back of all of this drama, double points finish, moves in front of Williams in the constructor standing.
Yeah.
I got to give it to him.
Did you see Ocon's post-race interview?
I did not.
He was pissed. Because
yes, I've read about it. I didn't watch the interview though.
So
give the context.
What happened is towards the end of the race, they come over the radio. Esteban Ocon was ahead of Pierre Gasly. They come over the radio and essentially ask Ocon to swap the cars, and Ocon immediately rejects that request. He's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." Essentially. But then he ends up letting Pierre go by, and the whole goal was that Pierre could then go and try to fight Danny Ricciardo. If he wasn't able to, they're going to swap him back, was what Ocon was told. Well, Ocon lets him swap. Pierre can't catch up to Danny, and they just finished the race that way. There was no order to swap him back. So afterwards, in the post-race interview, Pierre was like, I was too nice, and in Formula One, you can't be the nice guy, and basically alluding that he is going to enter his villain era from here on out and is not going to listen to any. I know, right? He was like, I'm not going to be the nice guy anymore, essentially. And so, hey, bring it on, Pierre.
Yes.
Esteban, I want to see this because this could be entertaining to watch them both go down in flames.
Yes.
or at least the fight that's going to ensue. So
when I
pumped.
first saw that happened, that Ocon apparently also requested to swap the cars back on the last lap, and they said no. It was on one of those Instagram channels that I was like, this is, I don't know how honest this is. And I saw it again. Then I saw it again. And then Formula One made a comment on it. And it was like, oh, this is real. Alpine actually did that. Wow. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, also, if you look at it, Nico Hulkenberg was only half a second behind Esteban Ocon. So, I mean, they probably didn't want to swap because you had Esteban Ocon and Pierre both running in the points. If you mess up that swap, you could potentially drop one of the cars out of the points.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's always the team is always going to win out in those decisions. But as Esteban Ocon, you know, he's fighting right now for his life, essentially, trying to get a new seat. But yeah, it's going to be entertaining to see how this season plays out now.
Yes, it will. And then, so those were my three.
Okay. So I'm going to go with Max for my first one, man. We've already talked about everything that Max did and how impressive it is to watch. As much as I want to see somebody else, especially Lando, win a race, I got to give it to the guy, man. He adapts and he overcomes like nobody else. My other one, I am going to go with Danny Ricciardo.
I knew you were. Because I had him written down as an alternate, but I knew you were going to take him.
Man, so to come back from all that crap that was being said before the race, then he qualifies in P5, drops down to P8 in the race, which by all accounts is the most that you can expect out of that car.
He didn't do much wrong. Right. That was what we had.
He did what he needed to do. He benefited from those Ferraris being nowhere this weekend. He benefited from Yuki Tsunoda crashing out towards the end of the race, which we didn't speak about that, but that was almost a huge incident right there.
It was. There's so much that happened this weekend.
Oh my God, there really was. And because of that, I'm going to go my third and final hero is going to be the Canadian GP as a whole. Everything came together from the weather to the groundhogs to just all of it. There was so many different variables and so much going on. No session was the same as the session before when it came to the elements and all that. So this is just an exciting weekend front to back. I thoroughly enjoyed this weekend.
It was, and I was also I'm going to give kind of an honorable mention to the stewards who did not get involved all that much this weekend, and they had a lot of opportunity. There were some impedings there that they could have really changed the results around, and they really kept their nose out of it. And I was very happy to see that.
Sometimes you just got to let them race, man. Yeah. Just let them race. And so,
you can't be doling out 10-second penalties on certain things. It changes the whole race. Like, I was really happy they stayed out of it.
And before we go, let's talk about that. The whole Danny Ricciardo 5-second penalty issue that he had for his false start. Which I was reading into it, and they said it was some sort of clutch issue that wasn't really his fault.
When they did the replay, it didn't look like he false started.
He barely moved. All right, so they were also, if you watched on the Formula One broadcast, F1 TV, they were talking about how after, who was it, Lando, that had that blatant jump in China or something like that, and somebody else jumped earlier in the season as well. Apparently, they tightened up the regulations and the rules after that. And so now any little bit of movement is going to get called. But yeah, after seeing what Lando got away with, and you're like, come on, man, give the guy a break here. But he got 5 seconds.
Danny had a good weekend. All right, what's your number 3?
That was it. So it was Max Canada.
Oh, you did the Canadian GP. Yep. All right, then let's get over to our predictions or lack thereof.
All right.
Bad weekend for me. Our current score is I'm still ahead 22-15. I think you're going to close that gap down a little bit this time though. So on pole, I think we both had Max.
Yes, we we did. I did. I had 2 sets of predictions. I got to look at my wets. I had Max on pole.
Yeah, it was George Russell. Neither one of us were ever going to call that one right.
Nope.
In P3, I had Lando Norris.
Oh, P3, I had Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
The right answer was George Russell. In P2, I had Max.
So did I.
Yeah, right answer was Norris. And in frickin' P1, I had Leclerc.
P1, I had Norris, that's why I was so upset with damn Logan Sargent, because I had Max in second and I had Norris in first, and I was going to get some points. I wound up with no points this weekend because the wild card didn't work out for me either.
Mine was Williams points. That didn't happen. They didn't even finish the damn race.
Mine, I had Nico Hulkenberg with his best finish of P8 or above, and he was P11.
So we both 2 weeks in a row, Kurt, 2 race weekends in a row, 0 points.
Look, I don't fault us for this one because I don't think anybody was able to predict what was going to happen this weekend.
I should have put Max in P1. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, well, you didn't. And now look at you. Now you're going to put him in P1. And
he's definitely P1 in Spain. I don't care what the weather says. He's P1.
Oh, man. So we got what? We got a week off and then
triple header.
Oh, we do have a triple header.
Spain to Austria to London. Triple header.
Oh, that's going to be a good triple header too.
Yes, I'm excited.
Spain is kind of whatever. Let's see. The Austrian
the Red Bull Ring is always pretty good, and then Silverstone is Silverstone. Like,
yeah, man, that's gonna be great.
Yep.
Well, so that's now the Canadian GP is over. We're gonna take this week, and we got no Formula One, but we'll come back with another podcast later in the week.
Got lots of news, lots of things happening in the background. I think we'll have some stuff to talk about.
I think so too, and I feel like there's some more. Somebody was saying that Adrian Newey is expected to make his decision soon.
I've been hearing that for a month.
I know. I want to know who somebody is.
Yeah.
Because somebody's always saying something, right?
Somebody's always saying something. I heard that Adrian Newey was going to kick Sauber. That's what I heard. Put that out there in the ether.
A bit of a tangent, yeah, right? They could use it. Did you see Adrian Newey in the, what was it? It's like the, whatever race he did in Monaco where it was like they drove all the old cars.
Yes.
Adrian Newey is actually a good driver.
Yeah.
Man. He was passing people around the hairpin in Monaco and stuff. Like, good for him.
It was. Yeah, it was fun. It was weird because I didn't recognize him at first. I was like, who's this old man? They're oh shit, that's Adrian Newey. Check that
out. But all right, guys. Hope you like this podcast. If you do, make sure you leave us a rating and a review. Follow us on YouTube, Formula America, and also on Instagram, Formula_America. And I think that's going to be it for this amazing Canadian GP weekend, unless you got anything else, Dylan.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, on that note,
stay classy, America.
We'll see you next time.